So today I'm going to be sharing with you a conversation I had with a lady who put her child up for adoption. I recorded this after obviously talking about the adoption section in this podcast, and also her adoption story is very different than probably what people normally would experience. She relied very much on her God and her religion and her church in getting this done and didn't actually go through a service or any kind of clinic. So it's going to be a very different kind of story than you would probably expect for adoption. However, it is fascinating and still a very valid example of putting a kid up for adoption and what that scenario might possibly look like. I will warn you though, I went to her house and recorded this, so I didn't have as much control over the sound and making sure that things were more soundproof. So you're going to hear some things in the background like cars going by or chimes in the wind or people walking around. I tried to edit out as much of it as I could, but obviously if that's happening while someone's talking, I'm not going to cut out someone talking. So bear with me with this one. I will do my best in the future to do better at figuring out how to minimize that stuff, but just fair warning of this one, it's not going to be as good quality as I would like. But it is still a fascinating story, and I hope you enjoy. So I'd probably start with, what was the decision-making process for you like? Like from when you found out you were pregnant to deciding to
So I didn't know where I stood on abortion. I thought I was against it, but I wasn't quite sure. And I went to the abortion clinic, and she said, we only have one day to give you an abortion. And I'm like, okay. I mean, who says that, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is God speaking clearly to me. Anyway, she said, it's July 16th. And I said, that's my birthday.
Oh, no.
I said, I'm not going to kill somebody on my birthday. She goes, it's not a somebody. I said, it absolutely is. It's a child. I'm not going to kill a child on the day I was born.
Right.
I mean, oh my gosh, you want me to have the most miserable birthday for the rest of my life?
I mean, yeah.
I said, no. I said, well, that's it. I asked God for peace, if I'm supposed to, I said, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I just asked God for peace. If I'm supposed to keep this baby, give me a loud and clear message. That was pretty loud and clear, because I already know my own convictions means I'm not going to kill somebody on my birthday. And she was like, it's not a baby, it's a piece of tissue. So she goes, look at your pinky nail, right? She goes, hold up your pinky nail. She said, look at that. She said, that's what it is. It's that big.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I said, anyways, I'm not doing this, because that's a message. I said, God just used you to speak to me, even though you're evil. She was like, I'm not evil. And I said, yeah, you kill people's babies and you make them not feel bad about it. So you're evil to me. Anyways, and I said, you won't be there when I'm crying at 2 a.m. I said, 3 of my best friends have gotten abortions. I took one of them there, and I regret ever bringing her there. I said, she calls me all the time at 2 a.m. crying hysterical. I said, are you there when these women are going to be crying at 2 a.m.? She goes, no. I said, well, you won't be there for me either.
Yeah.
So that was pretty loud there. Anyways, I went to the beach after that, because I always go to the beach when I need clarity. And I sat back, and I'm looking at the ocean, and I was like, gosh, this is amazing. Like, God created all this, And then it was really weird. A little piece of seaweed, literally the size of like that big, just went across the sand in front of me. And I picked it up, and I just went like that, and I was looking at it. And then it was like, God took my eyes off of that, and I just saw all of that. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I'm focused on this, and you created this. And I was like, you're amazing. This means I can do this, because you just showed me 2 ways. One, I couldn't handle the birthday thing, and now this is a mighty God. I said, my life is like a piece of sand compared to all this. So I was like, okay, this is clear to me. And I went home, and my dad wouldn't look my way. He was so ashamed of me because I was a Christian, and he kept his back to me. And I didn't really tell them very early on, but I think it was about a month now. And he just only would come in and keep his back to me. And so I said, Mom, I'm not going to live this way anymore. I was paying the rent at our house. My parents had claimed bankruptcy. And I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to you.
Yeah.
I said, I know you're ashamed of me too. I said, but God's given me a real clear message. I need to leave. Don't leave, please. Your father's so stupid, whatever. She tried to. I said, I'm sorry, Mom. You're going to have to figure out how to pay the rent without me, because I've got to go. I had a job. I owned my own house cleaning business, and I made a ton of money, and my parents were bankrupt, and I paid the rent. So that was the hardest part for me. But I knew I had to go. So they went out to dinner, and I packed up my car and moved to Gainesville that night.
Wow.
And I went, and my best friend said, "Come live with me," So I went and lived there, and that was the whole
nice
other
to have
story.
good best friends.
It wasn't, because she accused me of sleeping with her husband, and I was like, "Look, I learned my lesson." And we had both met her husband in England. We went on a singing trip with our college.
Okay.
And we both thought he was so cute, and we both really liked him, and then I was just like, he's in England. Well, she ended up marrying him, but...
Right.
So she's like, and I said, he's been my best friend since he married you. Like, I never wanted him again. You're my best friend, and he's my best friend's husband. So, but we laugh because he has my personality. So we're always kidding around and laughing, joking around, and she's real serious, and, she's like, you get along too well. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like, you're my best friend, and he's your husband, so he's around. So,
right.
Yeah.
You're gonna get along with each other if you hang out all the time.
But she worked in the day, and he worked, his job was, he was on the same schedule as me. So I was at home in her room with the door locked, never saw her husband in the day, and she would come home, and we were both home. I pretty much stayed in the room with my door locked, because I was still kind of depressed,
Okay.
And he was doing whatever he did. He was a music praise and worship minister at the church, but he really wasn't home, and he was a janitor, I think, at the church. Anyways, he really wasn't home much, but I didn't even know if he was home or not, because I wasn't out in the house.
Right.
And when she would come home, I would come out. You've been sleeping with my husband. I was like, what? I said, I've learned my lesson. In my room. I haven't even talked to your husband, and plus he's my friend,
Yeah.
So she said, yeah, you need to move out, and I was like, okay. And I left, and I went up to the church, and I said, hi, and she goes, hi. She goes, is your name Jenny Grupp? I said, yeah. I said, do you know me? She goes, no, but God knows you. And I was like, okay. Yes, he does. And she said, and my husband and I both prayed last night, and he got the name Jenny Grupp in a prayer, and we both prayed last night that if Jenny Grupp comes to us, that I'm supposed to ask you to move in with us. So if this is you, can you move in with us? And I was like, sure.
So was this a complete stranger?
Yeah, she was just church secretary. I just went up to the church because Lisa said, when you come here, you'll go to the Rock. And I was like, okay, never been there. I hadn't even been there. Only just been in town 4 days when she accused me of sleeping with her husband. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah. And I was pregnant, right? And they're eating potato chips and peanut butter is what they lived off of. And I was like, look, I can't live off potato chips and peanut butter.
Yeah.
So I had to go apply for WIC checks, so I was getting potato chips and peanut butter, oddly enough, and milk, things I'm allergic to. I'm like, this is horrible.
Great.
Anyway, so at least I had my own potato chips and peanut butter at that point.
Right.
So, so she said, will you move in with us? And I said, sure. She said, y'all have our stuff? I said, yeah, put it all in my car. I already moved out of their house because I'm not going to live where I'm accused. That's why I left the first house. So she said, okay. And I moved. Next day she found out she was pregnant, and she had to go on bed rest the next day. She was like, I think you had to move here for us, not for you. And I'm like, well, God just worked that out perfect, So I pretty much took care of her whole pregnancy and cleaned house and cooked. And
while you were pregnant as well?
Yeah. And I was way far. I was 4 months pregnant. Yeah. And she was just brand new pregnant. But something happened to her. I can't remember now, but she had to stay off her feet.
Okay.
So it's fascinating. I was like, God's pretty mighty God. He's got me,
Dang. And
so I didn't really doubt, and every time there was something where I doubted, God just showed me, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I went up, she said, go talk to the pastor, and I said, hi. I said, I'm pregnant and don't really want this baby. And he said, well, will you pray with me? And will you allow me to be in charge of this? If this God works it out, will you allow? I said, sure. I don't have any money. What am I going to do,
Yeah.
I said, I don't feel led to be the mother of this child. It was a mistake, and I know that God can use it for his good. So he said, okay, well, let's pray. He said, well, just pray and ask God. And he made a phone call, and he said, hi, this is pastor of the Rock. This was the Rock Church. And he called another pastor of another Rock Church. And I didn't know. I just was sitting in the office waiting with him, He said, I have a girl here. She's pregnant, and she wants to pray about what to do. Do you know of anybody who maybe wants to adopt a child? And the pastor said, there's a couple in my church. They have been praying and asking God for a baby for 19 years, and God specifically told them not to go to adoption agencies, that he would send them a child. So he put it on speakerphone. And, how does that sound to you? And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, well, what do they think they're having?
Right.
And she said, God promised me a girl. And I said, well, I don't know anything about this stuff, but the last 8 people who've looked at my belly go, you're having a boy. So let's just say this. If it's a girl, it's yours. And they were like, okay. So I literally had an ultrasound because when I did the weight checks, they had to do all this stuff to me the next morning. I mean, God just had it like laid out, you know. And the next morning I went and it was a girl. So I came to the office and I said, can we call that couple? Because this is a girl. So now this baby has a place, you know. And he was like, yes, let's call right now. So called him up and said, okay, do you want to know where we live? And I said, no, you take this baby and be away from me as long as you're far away. And he said, I know where I called and it's far away. I said, okay. Now I wish she was close because now we're friends. But anyways, I said, okay, great. And he said, 12 hours, 10 hours. I said, yeah, that'd be perfect. So I said, in case I get some weird urge and I want to drive over, I don't want to like go take the baby back, you know.
Right.
So anyways, she's 12 hours away. But it was great, and they said we'd like to meet her, you know, we want to just be able to talk to her, and so there was this thing going on in Florida where this guy had a baby selling ranch. He would have people come who were pregnant, pay them $30,000 for their baby, and sell these babies. So he had just been discovered, and this ranch had been closed, and anyways, there was no, so now a law went into place saying there's no baby selling. You can't, if you put a baby up for adoption, you can't know the parents, you can't whatever. And I said, I have some prerequisites, you know. I said, I want to know who the people are that I'm giving this baby to. And, you know, and they said, oh. So anyways, we would secretly talk through the church secretary, who, you know, I lived with, basically. Right. And she would hook me up with the phone call. I didn't know where it was and things like that, so it was funny. So quick story, bounced to the end, or near after that, they said they wanted to meet me before I had the baby. And I said, okay, let's figure that out. So we met in Silver Springs. It took them forever to get there. I guess they underestimated. And we had 1 hour before they closed. And we both go get on this glass-bottom boat. And it's me. I can't remember if Stephen was there. I think it was me and Stephen and Brenda and Alan. And we get on this glass-bottom boat, and this guy sits down, and he goes, so where are you from, to them? And I was like, and she goes, we can't tell you. And he goes, what? And I said, he goes, no, now I've got to know. And I said, sir, we're just going to make your whole day really awkward right here. Are you ready for this? He goes, okay. I said, I'm going to give you the 2 minute. I said, I'm having a baby. I'm putting it up for adoption. These are the people adopting it. I don't want to know where they live. We've only just met for the first time. Mm-hmm. And he goes, oh my gosh. I said, happy awkward day.
Yeah.
That's so awkward. I'm sorry. I said, I just told you. Because he pushed it 10 times. I have to know. I'm like, let me just make your whole day awkward.
What kind of person does that, though?
I know.
Someone's like, I can't tell you like that. Yeah, like, okay, no problem. Right. I respect your privacy. So it was really, she goes, I can't tell you. That's so funny.
And then it was really funny because when I was there in North Carolina and talked to her dad, we had gone out to dinner. You know, I'd been friends with her mom all the time. We were always on the phone after I put her up for adoption. But I never really talked to Alan much, aside from when he was in the hospital with me for 4 days. When I got an infection in labor.
Who is Alan?
We the adopted dad.
Okay.
Brenda and Alan are the couple who adopted Hannah. So he said, Jen, I never told you some of the challenges that lady who was in charge. There was a lady, Children's Home Society was in charge of the adoption, and my pastor was handling all my side. It cost money.
Yeah.
He's like, I saved you $32,000 or something like that, and it cost them $32,000 to adopt her. Mm-hmm. So technically it would have been $64,000, and the Home Society was a not-for-profit place, so they didn't charge anything. But still, there was all these, you know, I'm like, I have no money, so he did everything for me and funded it through the church, which was fascinating. Yeah. So, anyway, she came to know the Lord. She got saved, a lady who was this horrible witch. He said, you know, all the things that she put us through, she kept cutting us off every time we'd be able to, you know, figure out something new. She'd say, nope, you're not going to. I said, I'm going to put the baby in their hands. Because, nope, the way Florida law is, you take the baby, you put the baby into a foster home, the baby stays there for 6 months to a year, and then the baby, I said, nope, I'll keep the baby. If that has to happen, I'll keep the baby for 6 months to a year. This baby's not going into any home, anywhere, with any foster, nobody, ever. So, because this woman said, we want to keep this baby in Florida. We don't want this baby going to North Carolina.
Yeah.
So she just fought them on everything, you know, which was amazing. Yeah. So, but what was really cool was, before I did this whole adoption thing, I said to the pastor, he said, we have a person now, and you know, I was like, okay, so this will be that baby. I said, can you find me somebody in our church who's put a baby up for adoption? Because I feel like it's going to destroy my life to be wondering about this baby. Mm. So I talked to 2 people, and I went to go see this lady. He hooked me up within 3 days to go talk to this lady named Andrea. And she said, I'm fine. It's been 9 years. Da, 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 da. And anyways, it was really amazing. I was like, I just can't understand how you could give part of your body away. I mean, I want to do that because I'm not ready to be a mom. I haven't even gone to school. I only just started college 6 months before that. I got pregnant from a guy in college, literally, like a week after starting college.
That sucks.
So, I know. He was beautiful.
You say he was beautiful?
He did gorgeous. Great personality, funny. So
at least it was a good person.
I know. Yeah.
Who
yeah. So,
contributed his genes.
Yeah, he came to know the Lord too after that, which was a really cool experience.
Okay.
After I had her, I said to him, I was married, I said, I need to go. Well, I wasn't married, but we were together. He went through the whole labor and delivery with me, aside from the actual birth.
Okay.
And I said, I need to go see him. I need to show him a picture of his child, and I need to talk with him. So, and so he came to know the Lord, and I said, did you even, he was like, I didn't even know it was wrong to have sex before marriage. And I said, yeah, it's in the Bible. He's like, I never read the Bible before. And I said, well, this whole thing's happening. My whole life's just been changed for a year for you to come to know the Lord. So you better come to know the Lord. And he was like, okay. I said, there's a prayer you need to say, and you're going to pray with me. He's like, okay, I'll do it. I'm willing. You've put up, you've sacrificed your whole life. The least I can do is pray to God, and thank him. So whatever you need me to do. I was like, that's so cool. So it's neat. And I said, also, your children may meet your other child someday and want to get married, and they need to know there's a child out there that might be yours, And he was like, oh, yeah. So, anyways, I don't remember. Okay, what's your next question? That was way too long.
No, this...
So this lady goes, her name was Andrea, she goes, okay, so she goes, come outside, and she goes, okay, count 4 houses, 1, 2, 3, 4. She said, that's where the boy is that I put up for adoption. I was like, what? You can live with him 4 houses away? She said, yeah. And I said, and you're sane, and you're normal, and you're like not a broken person. She said, no, God blessed me with 4 more children. I'm very happy, and I can go see him. We're friends, and, it's no problem. And I was like, wow. I said, I'm just picturing, like, crying through the night, feeling like I put this child up for adoption. But she said, yeah, but God has led you the whole way, all along. Like, why would you feel like it was going to be any different? I was like, that's true. So, and then I talked to one more person. I went to another person, and I said, after I had her, I was in the hospital. I got an infection. So we were in the hospital for 4 days. There, me with the baby. When I was like, I know it has to go into my arms to be passed off, but aside from that, I don't want to hold her. Well, Satan was in the delivery room with me. And Brenda was a big lady, and she was actually too big to come into, like, the surgery room because I got 105 fever in labor. So just in case, they put me in there, and I had all kinds of signs on the wall. I was like, I'm not married. Don't cut my vagina. Don't put the baby in my arms. Like, oh my God. They're like, what? Anyways, so my sister was there. My sister came to go through delivery with me. The person who was supposed to go through delivery was the person I was living with, Ellen.
Okay.
And she went away on a trip. She said, don't have this baby while I'm here, because she was my coach. I've been going for the breathing, everything with Ellen.
Right.
Now my sister comes in, and my sister's so emotional. Oh, Jen, she's so cute. Tell them you're not going to put her up for adoption. Tell them you're going to keep her. I said, you're Satan. Nurse, take this lady out of here.
That's not
she goes, I'm your sister. I said, you're Satan. Get out of here. God has a design for this child's life, and you're not going to break it. So go out of here with your whatever,
Yeah.
Oh, Jen, I said, no, don't, Jen, me, get out of here. She couldn't believe I kicked her out. And I wouldn't even let her at the hospital anymore. I just told my mom to take her home. She was evil. She was going to go against everything God had just done for the whole year, all the hoops we had jumped through. And, I mean, God designed, when I was sitting there with no food and no money and no nothing, I would be like, God, I am just in a really bad place. My car is broken. I have nothing. And it wasn't my day to get the mail, but my roommate goes, can you go out and get the mail? I just can't. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't get the mail? I mean, come on. It's your day to go get the mail, right? We have 4 of us as roommates.
Right.
I was like, okay, I'll go get the mail. I go get it. It says just an envelope with $100 in it. It said Jenny on it. Nothing. It wasn't even mailed. Someone just went up there and put it in my... I was like, sorry, God, I should have got the mail.
Should have listened.
I know. And I had a class, and I had to have magazines. The guy wanted us to bring in magazines to cut pictures out of to make this project, and I needed a blanket to go for my final CPR class. Like, things I was like, okay, God, this is a really weird one, but I need 8 magazines, and I need a blanket, because I can't even take my final without these things. Right. And she goes, it's trash day. And I said, it's your trash day. She goes, no, you take the trash. I was like, I'm not going to lose this opportunity. I'm going out to the trash. And I go out, and there is literally 8 magazines with a bow on it. I didn't tell, and the thing was, God told me, don't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody I needed this stuff. And beside it was a blanket with a bow on it at the trash, at the big dumpster. And I'm like, why is nobody getting this stuff? It's wrapped up. I didn't get it. I was like, okay, God, thank you. You've got my back. Every time I had a blanket right there. And it didn't look used or anything.
Wow.
And 8 magazines with a bow. And I was like, I'm going to keep doing that, asking God for stuff. And I remember one time I didn't have any food and I was starving. And all of a sudden I get a phone call. Hey, you're new at the church. We're new at the church and I need a babysitter. And I don't have any money to give you, but I have tons of food. Can you please come get all this food? It won't fit in our fridge. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Sure. Babysit 3 hours and get, $300 worth of food.
Why not?
And then after I had her, I prayed because there was one night where I was really, really just missing her. So at the same time I was having a baby, 3 more women in the church were having a baby. Okay. So I'm surrounded by these newborn babies. But it was really cool because every time I needed a baby, I would go over and I would tap Andrea, and she's like, because she was exhausted. I was like, oh, and just the whole church service, I just got to love the baby. And there's another lady named Suzanne. And I went over and I said, hey, Suzanne. She goes, can you please babysit? Like, I didn't even get to say anything. She goes, can you please babysit? I am exhausted. Yeah. Give me 4 hours. And I was like, yes, please. So I got to hold her baby for 4 hours. And she slept. And, just like God kept just doing this thing where I got my fix. And there was one time it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And I get a phone call. And I was like, I'm going to be open to anything. And 2 a.m. And it's Brenda, who's adopted Hannah. And she said, Jan, God told me to call you right now. Are you doing okay? And I was like, I'm crying. I'm so sorry. She goes, you made the best decision. I mean, she just comforted me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that was God calling me every time and, being there for me. It was such a cool experience to just see that I was completely reliant upon God, and he just was there for me every minute, every time I needed him, So really cool experience. And I always said I was going to write a book someday, and I still want to, but it's not happening. Not now.
Not yet.
Yeah, I know. So, very cool experience. But, and then there's been people come to me and say, can you tell me about you putting the baby up for adoption and stuff? Oh. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. What do you want to know? I'll help anybody because people helped me,
Yeah.
So.
Would it normally cost that much to put a kid up for adoption?
Well, I don't know anything.
Okay.
I just was the recipient of everything.
That's bizarre. I never thought about the person giving the baby up for adoption having to pay tons of money for that to happen.
And then when Ellen had her baby, I was there, so she could sleep and I could watch the baby.
Right.
And then right after that, 4 months later, they said, God, and at the same time I went, Ellen, and she goes, God, and I said, we already know what we're going to say. She goes, yeah. She said, God has told me to ask you to leave. And I said, I'm just going to tell you that I have a place I'm moving into. Yeah. She was like, yes. I was so hoping I was going to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. I was like, I'm done. I need to be out of here because you've got your family and you're well rested now. She's like, yeah, absolutely. So it was cool.
Awesome. So at what point did you, have you are in contact with her now?
Yeah, so I always would send everything to Brenda. I would always send it every time we'd have a child. I'd send pictures, and I had a folder. She had her own little file cabinet, and so Brenda started a puppet ministry when she adopted Hannah, and she would go and share about the adoption everywhere, churches everywhere. She also started a ministry called Reaching Hearts, which Hannah still is in charge of. Brenda died when Hannah was 22.
Okay.
So she would call me, at least once or twice a month, and after that was once a month and every 2 months, and then, we'd just send pictures every time for my birthday and Christmas and whatever. So we always stayed in touch with each other, and then I guess she got cancer. I tried to teach her about health and stuff, and she didn't want to listen, but anyway, she died when Hannah was 22. Hannah knew that she had a file with all my information all along from age 3. She remembers, Mom told me about you. There's a file. I knew where it was. It was my family or something like that. And I could always go to it, but I never felt the need to until Mom died. Okay. She said, so she was 22, and so Hannah Facebook messaged me and said, I thought you'd want to know Mom died. I know you guys were best friends. I'd never spoken to Hannah except for when she was 2. I said, let me hear her accent. She said, Hannah, say duck. She said, duck. So she had a strong North Carolina accent. She said, say doggy, puppy dog. So that's the only way I ever heard her. But anyways, so I went into the ocean, and my phone fell in the ocean with me. I forgot I had it in my pocket or something like that. Okay. And I went to go get it reset, and when I got it reset, the message popped up, and he goes, oh, there's a message here. And it says Hannah Chitwood, which I knew she had gotten married, and it says, would you like to meet? And I was like, 6 months had gone by. And I was like, oh, how terrible. I didn't even know about it. So I immediately texted her back and said, I'm so sorry. 6 months went by. I said, I never got this. I had 4 Facebook accounts. She goes, I Facebook messaged 3 of them.
Okay.
Not the 4th one, which is the one I used. You know?
Okay. Why don't you have 4
I didn't know how
Facebook
to get rid of the old ones. And it pops over to one, and I'm like, I don't even know.
Oh,
I got locked out because of password, so I set a new one and the password or whatever.
Okay.
I'm not very good with technology. I am now. But not so I called her. She said, do you want to talk? And I said, yeah. So she called me, and she said, I would love to meet you if you want to meet. She said, Mom and I always had a tradition of going to her husband cleaned, her dad, Hannah's dad, cleaned a condo, and it was right on the beach. And she said, Mom and I go there every Easter for a week. And Easter's coming up. And I thought, maybe it'd be neat to connect with you. Can you come? And can you bring Sarah? And I said, sure. So I said, okay. So we arranged to go, and literally within a week we went there and stayed the whole week with her, and it was so amazing, to meet her and learn about her. And it's funny because I like monkeys, she liked monkeys. I like full moons, she likes watching the full moon. Like all the things that I have. And I said, she goes, did Mom know any of this about you? I said, no. She goes, so this is just something that's natural. Like you just like it and I like it. And I said, yeah. I said, your mom didn't know I liked full moons. And your mom didn't know I liked monkeys. She said, monkey's my favorite animal. I have all stuffed monkeys. I said, me too. She goes, I have 26. And I said, I have 26 stuffed animals. She goes, I have 26 stuffed monkeys. I said, oh my gosh. And we both had 26 stuffed monkeys. And she said, oh, my aunt bought me a Raggedy Ann doll. Her aunt bought her a Raggedy Ann doll when she was, and just like me, like we had so many just little things that I was like, this is so fascinating that you're so much like me.
Yeah.
And I said, I love the beach. And what are your favorite colors? I was like, well, I love, different colors. She goes, let me guess, teal and coral. I was like, yes. She goes, mine too.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was neat to see. And Sarah couldn't believe it because she's like, my mom's not making this up. I know this stuff about my mom. So. But it was neat to get to meet her, and she got to meet Sarah. And we bawled our eyes out when we were leaving, Mm-hmm. So now I go every year and I see her, and she was already married. She had gotten married right out of high school. She was 18.
Okay.
And we met her when she was 22. She's going to be 31 March 10th.
Okay. So I always ask this of anybody when I'm talking about these different elements. Yeah. And from your experience, would you say that adoption is the best solution to the abortion issue?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, what I had to get over was I was a Christian. I felt like, so there were some things that were not good. I was a part of no people group. I wasn't the college and careers. I wasn't the singles. I wasn't the, you know what I mean? It really wasn't anything. I'm like, is there a pregnant singles group around here?
Pregnant support group.
In college, yeah. I mean, college, pregnant, single women in church. Is that a thing? Yeah. I'm like, nope, sorry. So I didn't really have a group,
Okay.
And I felt like I wore my sin. Everybody could see my sin. And I said, she's an alcoholic, he's a drug addict, he's, whatever. Nobody sees any of that stuff.
Right.
Because you do it in private. And I said, I'm wearing my sin. I slept with somebody and I wasn't married, So that was hard for me. I felt like, the adulterer with an A on my, and I was like, okay. I said, but it was really cool because God really used that time in my life. And sometimes I felt that way. And so I was the only pregnant girl in college, full-blown pregnant.
Yeah.
But everywhere I would go, it was like God was turning me into some sort of minister, because I'd be standing and Stephen was with me all the time. I'd be standing in the Kroger line and someone would come up behind me and said, I had an abortion. Can you pray for me? And I'm like, sure. So I'm praying in the, grocery line, and I'd be waiting at the sandwich meat counter, and someone comes up and says, I have to confess something to you. And he's sitting there, he's like, I'll meet you out in the car.
Yep.
Like people were doing this everywhere. So I started praying for everybody. And then finally one night I was like, we were at Bible study with our church, and I was like, I was crying and I was mad. And they're like, you're angry, clearly angry. And I said, I am going through what I am going through. And I have people coming and asking for me to pray for them every day, and nobody's praying for me. And they're like, we're all praying for you. I'm like, yeah, but I am experiencing anger and frustration, and you know what I mean? And I just have these people coming up to me all the time. It's not fair. I mean, why am I the person called to take care of all these loser people? It was horrible. I did it right in front of my whole church too, and they're like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a loser too, honestly. I'm in the same
category.
Yeah, and so why am I called to respond to everybody like this? It's not fair. But it was really cool because God just kept And they're like, you'll get over it. You'll see that God is using you right in the midst of where you are. And I was like, it's true. God, I used to always tell, so I was taught Sunday school, and I was, all this stuff, and I used to tell the story about a bird who picked up a seed and was flying over a dump and dropped the seed in the middle of the dump. And this beautiful sunflower grew in the middle of this dump. And, a little dog came up and said, why are you blooming in the middle of this dump? I mean, you're beautiful, and this is a dump. And, why are you doing that? And it was like, this is what I was called to do. I was called to bloom wherever I was. And I was just like, grow wherever you're planted. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to grow wherever I'm planted. So I'm planted here. It started from my own mistake. Am I going to regret it and destroy my life, regretting my bad mistake for the rest of my life? Or am I going to grow where I'm planted? So I chose to grow where I was planted. It was really cool because God created a barrier inside my stomach. I was convinced, because honestly, the whole time I was pregnant, I didn't really feel pregnant. I didn't know that I looked pregnant. And then I was teaching gymnastics to 2- and 3-year-olds the day before I was about to deliver. And I walked by a glass window, and my best friend, we became friends again, the lady who kicked me out of her house, basically.
Oh, nice.
Was walking by, and I said, come here for a second. I want you to see this right now. And she goes, what? And I said, look in this mirror. She goes, what? I said, look at me. She goes, what? I said, I look like somebody's mother. She goes, yeah. You didn't know that? I said, I didn't realize I looked like a pregnant woman. I look like somebody's mother. I can't believe it. But people come up to me all the time and say, oh, is this your baby? Or what do you have? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not having it. This is somebody else's baby.
Yeah.
It was real easy for me to do that. I'm like, no, this is not my baby. It's somebody else's baby. So it was real good for me to have somebody to give it to, because I never felt like the responsibility
that
of
was yours.
I said, I'm just the house God has chosen to carry their child. And they're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. So I didn't have to have all these baby conversations. What do you name it? But people would say, what are you naming your baby? I'm like, oh, no, I don't get to name the baby. And they're like, huh?
Yeah.
Why not?
Probably easier to explain that than anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. But I mean, literally the day before I delivered, I only saw myself as a pregnant woman. She said, what is it? And I was like, God has allowed me a barrier. I never realized I looked like a pregnant woman. Literally, until just now walking by this mirror. So that's pretty cool. But I wasn't walking around feeling like I'm a mother having a baby or something.
Right.
So, and I didn't really act that way. Everybody else was like, oh, I'm like, I can't wait to play tennis again, and go canoeing and swim, do all the things that I kind of get back to the gym and start running marathons, all the stuff I wanted to do. And they're like, we're never going to get to do those things again. I'm like, yes.
I am.
Yeah, I said the favorite thing about the whole thing was when I went home after being in the hospital for 4 days, I slept for 16 hours. No one woke me up. It was so awesome. And when I woke up 16 hours later, they literally were having a celebration shower is what they called it. And everybody brought me like tea and massage gift certificates and yoga classes and whatever cool stuff they could come up with. But I got a shower to celebrate giving up a baby for adoption, and I thought, what a neat thing, So the lady at the house that I was staying at threw it for me. So I woke up to smell coffee. I'm like, I wake up and I'm in my pajamas and I come out and I'm like, nobody here drinks coffee. What's going on? And they're like, surprise. I was like, what are you doing? What is this? Because you've been sleeping 16 hours. And we threw a shower for you, and would you like to be a part of it? I was like, yeah, that'd be nice.
Why not?
Yeah, it's really cool.
So when you say that your dad wouldn't look at you, was it because you had gotten pregnant or because they wanted you to have an abortion and you wouldn't?
No, my parents were not pro-abortion. They just were ashamed that I'd had sex, even though I was a Christian.
Okay.
An active Christian. I was in church every Sunday.
Right.
And, whatever. I really wasn't a sex person. It wasn't my thing, honestly.
What led to that
happened.
then? Like, if it's something that you weren't really, I guess, drawn to.
God, I'm so gorgeous.
Okay. Just a very attractive man.
A bodybuilder.
Right.
Just beautiful. And I don't know, I was just like, ever since I saw him, I was like, and he was funny, real funny. So
okay. It was just that connection that just drew you in.
It was a 1 night, 2 minute thing, and I was just like, I'm pregnant. And he goes, what? I said, I'm pregnant. I kept feeling like, and literally I went to the bathroom and threw up. And he was like,
like immediately after?
Condom and it broke. Yep. I just knew it. And I said, I'm pregnant. And my sister had listen to this is how my sister set it up. It's so funny. We were going to my sister's house. She was out of town. She put a Bible on the bed. The bathroom leads into the house. There was a Bible on the pillow. And I go, I'm not getting on that bed. And he goes, move the Bible. I'm like, I'm not moving the Bible. You move the Bible. So we both shook the pillow. I was like, that should have been my first sign. Like, I did
Oh
the
my
like
gosh.
we did the pillow, no one touched it, and it fell on the floor. And we kind of like smushed it away with this box.
Oh my gosh.
I said, you don't even know anything about God. I do. I know this is wrong, you know.
Wow.
Like there's a reason for that. But yeah, I just knew it. And he had his condom broke. I'm like, how long have I been in your wallet? And he's like, I don't know, 5 years.
Oh.
Like, oh my gosh.
It's fascinating how many people I've learned either got pregnant on birth control or got pregnant in instances that they wouldn't think that they normally would, like from pre-cum or because the condom broke or they were on birth control and things like that. Like, that's one reason why I got into this, because there's so much information that people don't know. Like, I've had so many conversations with grown women who don't understand how ovulation works or when it happens or how to figure it out. Like,
I taught sex ed after that. I became a teacher and taught sex ed, and I'm like, if everybody thinks, raise your hand if you think a condom works. And I said, here's a picture of my daughter. I had this child using a condom.
Yep.
And they were like, what?
Try again.
Yep, there you go. So, and they're like, whoa, no. I'm like, yep. So wrap your 12-year-old brains around that.
Yeah. It
was awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't call her my daughter. I said, this is the baby I had, basically. I didn't call her my daughter until I asked her, you know, because she calls me her biological mother. My grandbaby was playing with me, and she was, I think the first time I started going there for a week, she was, well, I've always seen her, but she didn't really understand. So when she was 3, I said, give me a kiss. And she goes, we only kiss family on the lips. And I said, I am family. She goes, no, you're my Nini. I said, that's right. I said, you know how you were in your mommy's belly? She goes, yeah. I said, your mommy was in my belly.
Yeah.
And she looked, she was like,
what?
My mommy wasn't there. I said, yeah. She goes, you're family. And she was like plastering me with kisses. I was like, and I said, I'm sorry, I probably should have asked before I told her that. I said, I'm sorry, Hannah. She goes, I'm so glad you told her. I'm so glad she understands. Okay. And she goes, Lily, who's that? And she goes, you were in her belly. She's my Nini. Because Hannah calls me Jenny. So she calls me Nini, which is a form of Jenny.
Okay.
So, and I'm okay with that, you know, but now she'll say, this is my biological mother still. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. But she says she loves me. And
okay, just a hypothetical. Because of the experience that you had and the opinions you have in relation to abortion, how would you react to if you had a child who chose that path? Like, how would you deal with that?
I just know that, you know, from the experiences of the people that I know, I probably know about maybe 20 women who've had an abortion, and it's haunted all of them. The people that I've spoken to, heart to heart, of course, not just a random person telling me they have an abortion. Heart to heart, of course, that they're haunted by it. And I would tell my child that, you know, I tell my child that people I know of who've done this have been haunted by it. But adoption is amazing. There's a lot of people who can't get pregnant. Yeah, I mean, I would be accepting, you know, of their choice, but I would try to warn them of what I know of abortion, you know.
Right.
And but I'm not going to love them any less because they're my daughter, and it's ultimately will be their choice forever. So, but it is permanent choice, you know. And adoption is easy. I mean, it's not easy being pregnant for all that time and being sick and that kind of stuff, but at least I know when I think about how's she doing, I know she's happy and healthy and whole with the people that adopted her. You know, and only the times I was feeling sorry for myself, just like missing something, not necessarily a baby, feeling like I was missing something, you know. And then I could see pictures of her. She never would have had any of that. I'm like, I wouldn't have had a person to raise her, you know, father to raise her. And I ultimately wanted to put her up for adoption because I wanted her to have a father. You know, I said, I'm not raising a baby alone. She deserves a father. It's not her mistake. It's mine. So that was ultimately what made me want to put her up for adoption. And Alan remembered that. He said, that woman was evil. Every time we tried to go through this, she would make us jump 10 more hoops. And it was funny to hear the stories because I just never knew any of that.
Yeah. So how did they get around the the whole, we're going to put her in foster care for a year?
Because I said, we're going to get a lawyer and write up our own papers. And if I have to go into debt to write up papers to make this, you know, legal.
So there were legal
It
ways
didn't make
to
any
get around
sense.
that.
When you start talking to people, so there was 2 lawyers in our church.
Okay.
One of those named Bob Geyer. And Bob Geyer wrote up papers for free for me. He said, I will draw this up for you because it's absurd that a newborn baby would have to go live in foster care for a year. And not one foster care, 6. They said what will happen is that she'll go through a series of foster cares. And I was like,
what is the point in that? Especially if you already have a family who wants her, like
desperate for this child.
The things that she would have to experience in that way in a really important part of her growing
the
time.
First 2 years of your life is the most important. I mean, I went through, to be an educator, a child educator, and I was like, the first 2 years are so crucial in a child's life. Why would I want this child to have the abuse of living with 6 families in the first year?
Yeah. So that's bizarre.
Yep. So.
Dang.
But God made Bob Geyer write up that thing for me, and we avoided the whole. Everybody signed off on the papers, and I had to get Chris, the dad, to sign off on the papers. And I called him out of the blue one night and said, "I need you to sign papers. I'm putting the baby up for adoption." He said, "I'll sign whatever you want," because he was a valedictorian in his class, and he was hired by a firm to be the accountant there, and he was the #1 student, and he was going to be the #1 accountant there, and there was a new business, and he was like, whatever, I don't want any part of this, so I'll sign whatever you want. So I said, okay, that was easy. Dang. Literally faxed him the papers from the hospital. He signed off and sent them right back immediately. So.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
If you are interested in commenting about this episode, you are welcome to. You can either send me an email at lawlessconversations@yahoo.com. That is LAWLESSCONVERSATIONS@yahoo.com. You can also comment on Twitter at Lawless Convos, LAWLESSCONVOS. Finally, you can also contact me on Facebook if you just look for Lawless Conversations, 2 different words, LAWLESSCONVERSATIONS. I look forward to hearing from you. The references to any sources that I use in each episode will be available in the bio, along with all of these social media connections. Join me next week as we talk a little bit about government assistance and the ideas of taking that off the table when it comes to abortion and what that would look like. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I look forward to next time.